There are no great socialist intellectuals, by definition. This is a tweet that I think about often, not because I have any massive desire to disprove it, nor do I plan to flesh out an in-depth argument as to why socialism. I'm not Albert Einstein. Yes, he did write that. The reason this tweet lives rent-free in my head is due to the egregious display of cognitive dissonance by its author, Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson has publicly shown his support for George Orwell and his works. He's a fan of Orwell's magnum opus, 1984. As am I. If you've read 1984, then you're aware that in the novel, Orwell constructs a language unique to the universe he created. One of the terms, doublethink, is meant to describe the state of holding two contradictory beliefs. In this video, I hope to point out the doublethink, or cognitive dissonance, of Jordan Peterson. To get back to his claim that there is, by definition, no such thing as a socialist intellectual, let alone a great one, I want to really quickly talk about socialism and what exactly it means. A lot of people hear socialism and they immediately think of the Soviet Union, Mao's China, North Korea, and all of these authoritarian states. Yet, in some cases, those same people simultaneously use socialism as a pejorative to describe milquetoast liberals or social democrats. How many times have you heard an anti-socialist use the term socialist to describe Barack Obama or Kamala Harris, or more recently Tim Walz? But how could these people concurrently believe that socialism is both Mao Zedong and also Tim Walz? It's because they don't know what socialism, or communism for that matter, is. For the sake of this video, let's use the dictionary definition. Socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. But this definition, in my opinion, does a bad job at covering just how diverse socialist beliefs are. Socialism today seems to be more of an umbrella term with many offshoots than it is a dogmatic doctrine. Under the socialist umbrella, we have vast ideologies ranging from democratic socialism, libertarian socialism, market socialism, Marxism, Leninism, anarcho-syndicalism, Trotskyism, and a lot more. To really drive home how different some of these ideologies are from one another, we can look at two socialists from different schools of thought. Joseph Stalin, from the Soviet Union, you might have heard of him, who by the way is considered a state capitalist by some, but for the sake of argument, we can refer to him as an authoritarian socialist or communist. And Salvador Allende of Chile, a democratic socialist. Both of these men and their regimes boast the socialist label, yet produced very different outcomes. Allende was able to lower inflation, raise real wages for the working class, improve literacy rates, and much more up until he was killed in a coup in 1973. Stalin, on the other hand, well, he Stalined. He did some not-so-chill shit. I say all of this to say, when Jordan Peterson makes a reductive claim like, there are no socialist intellectuals, are we really to believe that not a single person from any of these schools of thought under the socialist umbrella was an intellectual? No, and I can prove that Jordan Peterson does not think so either. This is Jordan's recommended literature page on his website, and for a man who does not think highly of the intellectual abilities of the socialist, you would think that the first 3 books on his recommended literature page would not be written by socialists. Ernest Hemingway was a socialist. George Orwell, remember him? We just talked about him not too long ago. Appears multiple times in Peterson's list and is a democratic socialist. And I know that Jordan knows this about Orwell because he's admitted it multiple times. He's actually said that Orwell was both influential to him and a socialist in like the span of 10 seconds.
And so he wrote this book called Road to Wigan Pier, which I would highly recommend. It's on a reading list I made. It's on my website. You can check that out. Those are books that have been particularly influential to me. And so Orwell was a socialist. I became aware of how prescient George Orwell was with regards to the dangers of totalitarianism. He was one of the first intellectuals in the West to...
There are no great socialist intellectuals, by definition.
One of the first intellectuals.
Peterson can also be seen in a video reading Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut.
I'm going to read a short story by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. called Harrison Bergeron.
Vonnegut is my personal favorite author. I have everything he's ever written and this pillow with some book covers on it. I'm a huge Vonnegut stan. I love the dude. I really like him. So to see Jordan use Harrison Bergeron, a story about revisionism, authoritarianism, and the suppression of individual skills to imply that Kurt was an anti-leftist or anti-socialist author is highly dishonest. Kurt was anti-authoritarian, but he wrote extensively about his admiration for democratic socialism. He's even gone as far as naming the protagonist in his novel Hocus Pocus after Eugene Debs. Debs was an influential American socialist who was jailed for opposing the draft for the First World War, yet managed to secure almost 1 million votes for the Socialist Party from prison without ever hitting the campaign trail. Kinda badass. I'll give it to him. He was a cool guy. Vonnegut greatly admired Debs and what he stood for. If you've read Kurt's works, namely his memoir, A Man Without a Country, it becomes abundantly clear where his sympathies lie. I say all of this to say, I'm sure you could imagine my surprise when I saw the comment section of the video where Peterson is reading Vonnegut's story and found people claiming that Vonnegut was anti-socialist. Don't get me wrong, I can understand why someone would read Harrison Bergeron, a story about handicapping individual strengths to create a more equitable society, and immediately think about the authoritarian communist regimes of old. But again, this fails to take into consideration the many anti-authoritarian offshoots of socialist thought. For some intellectuals in the anti-authoritarian left, equality isn't necessarily the main focus at all. Typically, the emphasis is placed on freedom and adjusting the proximity between the worker and the means of production. The lessening of inequality is seen as a downstream positive consequence. When we think about the negative effects of capitalism or countries ravaged by it, thinkers like Jordan Peterson will say, "That's not capitalism, that's corporatism." Actually, I just heard his boss, Ben Shapiro, use this line like a few days ago, not too long ago.
Which is corporatism. It is not capitalism. And then, when that system inevitably falls on its face, capitalism gets blamed.
I don't know if Ben means to be using the word corporatism here. A lot of the time, when people use corporatism, they mean to be using the word corporatocracy, which refers to a political system dominated by corporate interest. Corporatism, on the other hand, isn't necessarily as malevolent. It advocates for a system where corporate groups and different economic sectors, such as agriculture, labor, or guild associations, come together and negotiate contracts or policy based on their common interest. In theory, this is not meant to produce wildly disparate outcomes and is predicated on good faith negotiations and genuinely looking out for one another. In theory. Anyway, I might just be being pedantic. Back to the video. It got really sunny, it's nice now. Regardless, capitalists don't seem to have a problem brushing off the failures of capitalism as actually being the failures of corporatocracy. Yet, when modern-day socialists claim that the failures of past authoritarian communist states are actually due to state capitalism or authoritarianism, those same capitalists no longer accept that line of logic. I know this is supposed to be a video about Jordan, so I digress. Sorry. Back to his socialist-riddled recommended literature blog. So we've already established that the first three authors on this page are socialists, so let's see who's fourth. Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy, although not considering himself a socialist due to his belief that the state could not bring about a true socialist society, actually opposed all forms of hierarchy. He was an anarchist. And for those familiar with where anarchists are situated on the frankly rudimentary and outdated political spectrum, they're far left. In addition to not being a socialist, Tolstoy was vehemently anti-capitalist. So far we have 3 books written by socialists and 1 written by an anarchist. You're recommending a good amount of leftist authors, Jordan. Next on the list is Dostoevsky, who influenced Peterson quite a bit and is an author who I think is incredible, but Fyodor Dostoevsky was not a socialist. Well, he was in his youth, then there was this whole imprisonment, mock execution thingy, and he came out the other end anti-socialist. It's an interesting story, and he wrote phenomenal books. For the sake of brevity, I will list out the remaining leftist authors on Jordan's recommended book list instead of going one by one. It's important to note that since there are so many different schools of socialist, anarchist, and leftist thought, as I've already stated many times and as we've seen with Tolstoy, I'll just use the term leftist to encompass any author holding anti-capitalist sentiment. Huxley, who appears here multiple times, Hemingway, again, Steinbeck, who appears here multiple times, Hunter S. Thompson. This one's interesting because he was always thought of as being a libertarian gun lover, which, by the way, is not incompatible with socialism, but in reality, he was a Che Guevara-loving, left-leaning dude. William Golding, and more Orwell. I think I'm just gonna stop counting here because I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. I don't think you need me to list out all of the leftists on anti-leftist Jordan Peterson's recommended book list. Now, I'm not here to argue that since Jordan enjoyed a book or two from someone he disagreed with politically, that makes him some sort of a hypocrite. That's not at all what I'm saying. I love Dostoevsky's and Yukio Mishima's books, and I would definitely disagree with them on a great many political issues. Who cares? The issue here is that these are books that Jordan has openly stated influenced him, so much so that he feels that they are critical works of literature and everyone should read them. For Jordan Peterson to make a statement like the one he tweeted and then have an entire recommended literature page on his website riddled with leftists shows a great deal of intellectual immaturity on his part. Again, this video is not meant to convince anyone to embrace socialism, capitalism, theocracy, liberalism, or any other ism. It's just here to show how Jordan Peterson, in his blinding hatred of the opposition, willfully throws out reductionist takes that he himself doesn't seem to believe, and he looks like a fool because of it. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry if this video is random and like many years too late because I just started a YouTube channel and I always wanted to talk about this. Anyways, bye. Thanks for watching. Oh, and subscribe if you don't mind.